2016. And on this little video, we're going to be talking about Waverly Hills Sanatorium. And it is much spoken about. Uh, and these days, it's about as common as a slice of cheese. You see it all over the television screen. But I want to hear some stories. I'm lucky here to have somebody that I know, see who has been there, grew up near the area.
Oh yes, I was born and bred in Kentucky, and grew up there, and I absolutely loved it.
But don't you think that places like this, they kind of like have a core of darkness that builds up during the years? I mean, there's a lot of sadness, there's a lot of misery, bad things going on, and obviously famous suicides in that place. Yeah, but it seems like, when the doors close on such a place that was so filled with people for so long, it's like an old school or something like that, an old office building. Whatever, the heavy stuff that went on remains, and I'm not going to go through all of the sort of common knowledge type stuff about the paranormal and, notions of why ghosts remain or don't. Personally, I don't think I believe in human ghosts anymore. I think they're pretty much all, demons. So I'm thinking that Waverly Hills, as active as it is, obviously active as it is, for my money, is filled with demons, which makes it just that much more terrifying. Basically, a haunted castle. If you haven't ever seen it, it's a sanatorium. It was originally a sanatorium, a tuberculosis hospital, but yeah, you look at it and it's more like a castle. It's huge.
It was state of the art for its time when it was built in around 1900. It was a vast area in the hills of Kentucky, and it was considered quite state of the art for its time.
Well, I mean, the infrastructure, anyways, stood the test of time. It is like, and it's like an American castle, American ruin.
That's why it's still there, because it's built like a castle. Was gonna
Well,
last,
yeah, the bones of the place. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
the
bones
bones.
and maybe the soul of the place is still definitely there. But I never got to go there, obviously. I was always, a stupid kid racing towards those type of places, but we didn't have anything like that here. So we're going to talk about sort of what I consider the heyday of activity when it comes to the place known as Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Uh, Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, actually, is whenever you were sneaking around visiting Waverly Hills.
Indeed.
I've heard that more recently they're talking about turning this place into some kind of high-end condo or something.
Well, yes, I've heard it through the years that they were going to build a prison. They were going to build a prison there, and I've heard that they were going to build a religious monument, which I'm not opposed to that anyway, because it's going to be Jesus. The same that's
But it
in.
didn't happen though,
No, it didn't. No,
unfortunately.
unfortunately, no, it
Maybe that's
didn't.
what that place needed.
Yeah, maybe it's what it needed. The funding fell through, and there's always a story of why whatever's supposed to happen there doesn't happen, which we can go into that in a minute. And but now it's a very popular place. I hear that long after I had moved, and they were having underground sound concerts there and all this, which is just makes me sick. I mean, I'm just sorry
I
to
mean, I
say.
can appreciate it being an interesting venue, but I also know what it's like when you had a place that was kind of like your secret, your little thing. And now it's very popular. I could almost cringed for you the first time I saw them showing it on the television, and I was noticing that it was really cleaned up.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
was about to say when we were going to step into that when I later after I'd moved to Texas and I'd seen it on TV, I about fell out of my seat in that the place has been cleaned up so much. I mean, I dare say swept.
oh yeah, well they
Uh,
definitely
you know,
they completely keep it up now. They have events and stuff going on there.
oh yeah, it's a popular like walk through haunted house.
But in your day, it was a legitimate closed doors, no trespassing, don't come in here, kids. But I know you're going to come in here anyway. Spooky ass place, but it was like one most of us don't get to visit. We all had the odd little haunted house or something, the odd ranch house in an old field somewhere, but that's something else. I mean, that's really like we keep saying, it's like having your own spooky old castle to go and be stupid in. So you were there in the late 90s, the early 2000s when it was, the way you have told me, like a paranormal Pompeii.
Yes.
Back then there was still stuff actually in the drawers, still chairs and
Yes,
tables. And
that was a big difference also that I was going to mention that when I saw it on TV, all the extra stuff, the people litter, if you will, that much was gone, but there were still things there. While on TV, nothing's there. I mean, everything's been cleaned out, everything except the morgue tables and stuff like that. They left that stuff in there, of course, because that's the bang for your buck. But in any case, I long heard about this place from my parents and your older peers and stuff. They're always sneaking up there. And I can quickly say that there's several types of activity going on up there. There's your out and out curious people, ghost hunters and stuff, like why I later wanted to go there more than once myself, which is completely understandable, especially as a young person. You're very curious. You may or may not have a solid religious background or what have you. Uh, but there's the people that sneak up there for a scare, usually bring in a prospective mate up there for,
a little necking in the woods.
oh, of course, but a little, drive her right into your arms, get her good and
Exactly. Yeah.
scared, get her good
Exactly.
and scared, because that would be a joke too. Like if you're planning to score or whatever, it'd be, so you're going to take her up to the hills and, get her good and scared. But anyway, the third type, uh, and I'll just call it a spade a spade, it's satanic activity up there. There's been always been groups of devil worshippers and out and I was raised a pagan myself, so the distinction, is clear, was very clear to me then. These people were up to no good, and there's the little punks that are doing it, and I say as in youthful and very foolish, just dabbling with things that they don't understand and shouldn't be anyway. But then there's actual serious cults that use the area and the place. And I guess obviously all that negative energy that's already built up there,
Well, yeah. I
they
mean,
like to tap into that. And like now I know that they're actually, that this isn't people ghosts. I assumed at the time, because of my beliefs, that these were people, that these were all these tortured souls that were trapped in this horrible place, and that, really smote my heart with compassion, that I so, perhaps some of these people could be released, or, worried about. Now I know that these are actually nothing more than devils and demons.
that is something that really bugged me. That was one of the things that really bugged me about the Bible and about any of that stuff. What was the notion of, especially like a kid or any person really, but the idea of somebody just being stuck in a place. I mean, it's it was too much to want to believe. But I think like I said, now I got reasons to believe that these are not human ghosts. These are not people. They're playing on sympathies and stuff. But you were talking about negative energies, and I want to get back to like what you used to talk about, the just on the approach to the place.
Yes, this was a much more wooded area than I've seen when I looked at recent pictures on the internet. Uh, Man, that place has been cleared out and around it, and to where there's like, I won't even say a real tree line against it, approaching the area anymore. It's a twig line,
From what I saw, there was like they've kind of cleared out what the front area, and they've got the little, at least a clean driving way around the backside.
That part always existed, but it's clearly well maintained now, very clearly maintained. But yes, the woods approaching the place, because you can drive right up to it, but since there was cops and security to consider, it's smarter to hike in or to use the woods as cover to approach and make sure, because if there's an incident up there, and there's many incidents up there, the cops could well be there, and that could totally ruin your plans. So it's best to approach stealthily, and I always take something like that pretty seriously. So
And we're not advertising for any of the little kids to go sneaking in, especially now. The place is it's not what it used to be.
No, you absolutely should not do this.
They
This
and plus there's I'm sure some nice people there that I believe that watch it at night, and you don't want to go spooking them.
Oh well, now it's totally different. They've got that place totally secured. Like it has been even like I'd say even years before now they had that place like pinned down. Now you really can't get away with any of this sort of stuff anymore.
You were talking about how upon the approach to the place, and obviously anybody who's ever been in the woods and paid attention noticed how noisy it is in the woods most of the time. But you were saying when you get close to this place, it's just quiet.
Yes, I was gonna say I have a lot of experience in the woods, not just where I grew up, but my father was a hunter, an avid survivalist kind of guy, and did it for real. And so I have lots of experience in the woods and doing hunting quite a bit, and spent a lot of time in the woods. And there's several layers of noise in the woods. You know, there'll be the bugs, there'll be the bigger animals that and birds that'll be telling on you at least for an hour.
And the squackers.
Yeah, lots of bugs and creepy crawly things that make their own noise. And then there'll be the general noise of the trees and the leaves and all that stuff. But I noticed going in here, it was quiet, so quiet. Not no bugs, no wind, not a rustle, nothing. I mean, even my friend noticed it. I remember we said as we went back there for the last time, and do you hear that? And I was just like, I don't hear a single thing.
Yeah,
And
so
yeah,
quiet you can hear your ears ringing.
yeah. I mean, it was spooky. I mean, I'm accustomed to, like I said, layers of noise all the time, and there
You
was
notice it being
nothing.
like that every time you and your friends went.
Uh, yes, I did. But I think that time it was the worst because it was just the two of us on our own. Because
Mm.
before you always seem to go. I mean, in my experience, we went in groups of at least four or more. Usually pairs of people, and other people might meet you there if they know you're for sure you're going on a particular night, whatnot. Uh, there's a lack of animal life I noticed in those woods. There certainly are birds and things, but I didn't notice like the common habitation that I would see all through the woods. I didn't see that.
And obviously quiet and creepy on the inside.
Well, the place stands up tall, silhouetted against the hill a little bit, and you can see it for quite a distance away. And it is a spooky looking edifice. Like you said, a castle earlier is correct. Anybody that's never seen it, it's easy to look up. It does indeed look like some kind of American castle. It even has a tall tower part, and the building stretches out, and there's other structures that were there. Some are long gone, and some are still hanging on there. Uh, it is a place that you know you work yourself up to go into. I don't know anybody that didn't have to talk themselves up and say it's just a building. It's just a building. I've walked in a million buildings. Why does this matter? I'm just letting it get to me because it's so spooky.
So now, once inside, you obviously, and this obviously these experiences are collected through a few different times that you went. So we'll build up to a couple of the other ones, but just hit me with some of the just sort of the bumps, the knocks, the voices, anything like that.
All right. Well, the first time we went onto the actual property, the grounds and everything, I went with a couple friends of mine, and I want to say I was about 13, and I absolutely had no permission to be doing this at all. My mother and dad would have skinned me alive if they had known I had done any of this. So that's full disclosure there. They were not irresponsible parents or anything. I snuck out with my friends and we went. So the first thing that happened was when we went up. and we went inside the main entrance, and it spreads out before you. There was all kinds of just dust and leaves and peeling the peeling wood, and the place just seemed to cry out to me when I first went in. And I've had experiences my whole life, and I'm going to get into that in a separate uh, talk, just because it's so extensive. It would take too much time here, but just to say that I've had paranormal activity throughout my childhood. And the place seemed to cry out to me as I went in. And we went there at night. As we snuck in and were using the flashlights, we kind of broke off, and my female friend and I, we were walking towards down a hallway, and we took a turn, and there on the ground in the light, there was a skull, and my friend jumped right onto me and very afraid. And right away I could tell you that this was something that was brought here by people. There was paint on the floor, and by the way, this place is very heavily vandalized. There's all kinds of creepy stuff. People have spray painted on there and artwork and other stuff. So just to mention that, that also adds to the creepiness of the place. And I could tell you that this was a, mini altar that we had found. And she knew I knew about the occult and things like this. So she looked at me like, what does this mean? And I was just like telling her that I thought it was just, people screwing around. And I was trying to not scare her, but I knew that this was paraphernalia of satanic activity. So I was just like, okay, well, let's kind of move on. That's a little creepy.
Sometimes I think if you walked out into the woods and pointed at a random tree and then started spreading a rumor that something weird had happened there, before you know it, weird things will have happened there.
Oh yes, creepiness begets creepiness. The creepy stories, the creepy history of this place brings creepy people that do creepy things. That's a fact. Uh, I was just more like rethinking this. I had heard this before, but I thought, okay, that's something that they're saying. They're just adding that in to keep you out of there. It must be so cool. I want, because I was actually coming out of concern. I was worried about these ghosts. I was like concerned that they were really trapped there. I didn't know if I could do anything about it, but I was concerned about it. And then as we're starting to back up, we hear running in the hall, like fast footsteps, really quick, like somebody running in the hall. Well, got really scared, and she called out for her boyfriend that had gone off with his friend a little ways away, and came back. And he had heard the running too, because he said, "Was that you guys that was running in the hallway there?" I'm like, no. I mean, like, we just found this creepy skull and this stuff in this other room. And she started to get really even more frightened than I was.
Oh yeah, now that
Yeah.
I mean, you absolutely must worry about the living people that you'll find
Oh yes,
sometimes in these places.
that's what was running through my head really, was knowing the realities, being raised pagan on the white path. Uh, I was fooling myself thinking that there was a difference. But anyway, knowing what people on the dark left-handed path get up to and the things they're calling on, and then seeing actual evidence that these people were coming here, I was really rethinking this thing. We probably shouldn't be here. And we went out into what, I don't know if you want to call it the solarium, but I know it was an open air treatment area for the tuberculosis patients. They put them out on this air area where they could get fresh air blowing in. And During the sun, it's a good area to stand there and get some sun and get a really good view of the surrounding area. But at night, it's something else entirely. And I remember all of us were slowly creeping through this area. And let me add that the numbers are still on most of the doors, above the doors in the offices. There was still some windows when I was there. Uh, we went further onto the solarium. I'll just call it that. I don't know if that's the right term or not. But in any case, we're standing there, and I start to creep up to the edge of the wall, thinking, well, I just want to look over. I'm just going to look down and around and, you know, basically telling myself I could do it and there's nothing to be scared of. And as soon as I walk away from my friend, like I don't even mean 5 feet, we hear bam! A door slams right behind us. One of these creaky old doors that I don't even know if it can really meet the the jam properly if I had tried to close it. But one of those doors slammed against the wall right behind us. And I came out of my skin, that was just too much. I was pretty much ready to go home by this point. We did go by room 502, which is a big famous room. And the creepy thing I can say about there, other than when you know the story ahead of time anyway, that when we stood in that room, and the story is that a nurse hung herself in that room because she was pregnant and she had a tuberculosis. She had contracted the illness, and she wasn't married. And it's hard for us to imagine now, but back in the day,
That was like no way out.
there was no way out. I mean, you were going to be ostracized not just from church, but your society. Like everybody would be talking about you.
I mean, I could be totally wrong, but I think I've seen that story again and again.
Oh, that really happened. Yeah, that part really did happen. That's a documented thing. I know for sure. But what happened to us when we were in there was, it's not anything amazing, but it was scary. I remember standing there with my friend and we were holding hands, and we were standing there and there was breathing like that, like somebody about to cry, uh that rasp in their breath, like somebody's chest hitching about to cry.
Shuddering.
Yeah, a shuddering kind of hitching in the chest, like somebody was about to cry. And I remember our eyes met we barely turned our heads, and I don't remember if she yelled first or I yelled first, but before no time, we're both yelling and we're running out of there. And you know, it, although the place is big, you can get turned around in there and get freaked out. You've got to remember where the entrances are, and that if you're on one of the wings, how to come back to the main entrance. Uh, we ended up going out at that point. That was just too much. And I feel really bad when I think about it now because there we were, 13, 14. I don't think there was one of us. I think one of the other people there was maybe 15. Had a learner's permit. Shouldn't even, had no business being out at that time of the night anyway. And then my friend was crying. She was so scared and she got so shook up, and I was afraid, and I was more worried about getting caught at this point because we had yelled so loud. And I know, especially the cold air carries, and anybody could have heard that and thought we were being murdered or something, called the police. Although I wasn't too worried about that, it had crossed my mind. So I was preparing, I was just thinking, well, we need to get out of here now. This is enough's enough. I know I told the guys there that she had enough and we need to get home, and this, we're gonna get caught if we stay out here any longer. So that was pretty much the first experience on the grounds, and we did make it home safe and all.
Now, tell me about, and it doesn't matter if it's in chronological order or not. Tell me about the eyes.
Oh yeah. Yes, that happens on the second time I go. The second time I go, when I'm about 15. Do you want? I can just tell you that part real quick.
Well, go ahead and just tell it how you want to tell it.
All right, I'll just. It's best for me just to tell it the way in order that things happen, so I maybe don't forget anything. This time when I went back, I was like, I'm not going to get myself scared out of there. I was really ramping up in my pagan beliefs and my skills in that area. I I was a serious believer in what I was doing. I had been raised in it. Uh, this was all real to me. There was no laughableness about this. I knew from my training that two kinds of things can happen to you when you go to these places. That things might attach to you because you were disrespectful, because you thought it was a big joke, or they might stay with you because they like you, because you can hear them and see them easily. Uh, and all these corrupt beliefs and foolishness, I really did believe these were people who were trapped here. I thought it was just terrible, and that, like you said before, that corrupted my belief in God. Uh, how could God do that to anybody? Why would He abandon a child to be, trapped somewhere? And just to finish that thought, my understanding of Scripture and everything now, which is far better than it was, I understand that that is not possible. That all the dead are in heaven with the Lord and are taken care of, and that they cannot cross that area into our world. So anything that appears as a ghost is lying to you, that appears as a relative, appears as a child, appears as anything.
Comes and talks to you on your
Yes.
Ouija board, even though it came from Parker Brothers or whatever.
Absolutely. They use whatever method, and that's why it's so insidious, because you get foolish people like me practicing this wicked stuff, thinking it's okay because it's the white path or whatever, which is foolishness. I can get into that on another discussion. But in any case, uh, I wanted to go in the afternoon this time. And I wanted to see it change over to dark, because I was like, well, I went in the dark. I got myself scared, I knew what happened really happened. But, this was 2 years on, I had talked myself into that I could handle it and all this. So again, we went when no one I know that was there was supposed to be there. Security was a little tighter in near the area by this time, so you needed to be more stealthy as you moved through the woods. And I took it very seriously. I brought my backpack with my basic gear and stuff, and wanted to make sure I had a good mag light and all that. And,
Going all full Goonies.
oh yes, full Goonies.